Good morning, everyone. It is Friday, January the 10th, 2020. It is currently 10:43 a.m. Central Time. Now, this is a special live broadcast for the Non-Catholic Catholic podcast. That's a mouthful. A live broadcast for the Non-Catholic Catholic podcast. Now, if you don't know anything about the Non-Catholic Catholic podcast, it's a podcast dealing with Catholicism. That much you could probably figure out. And I'm the non-Catholic Catholic. And the reason I call myself that is because, well, I was called that by a professor at a Catholic university. He said that I was the most Catholic non-Catholic he had ever met because of my knowledge in regards to Catholicism. So this is a podcast dedicated to the subject of Catholicism, everything related to Catholicism. Current news, theology, doctrine, but it's done from a non-Catholic perspective, looking at everything related to Catholicism, kind of my journey into Catholicism, looking at it, analyzing it, and at times critiquing it and criticizing it. And sometimes when that happens, it creates a little bit of controversy. Sometimes when I say something positive, it creates controversy. So if you really think about it, this podcast was really a bad idea because I'm not going to please anyone with this podcast. I'm going to make everyone mad. But, there's got to be a place to speak the truth with or without offense to friend or foe. So let's jump right in. I don't have a lot of time for this special live broadcast, but let's jump in. My day started by receiving the following email. Here's the email I received. Catholic bishops proclaim homosexuality normal. All right, that got my attention. We have some Catholic bishops that are proclaiming homosexuality is normal. Now, the Bible clearly teaches that homosexuality is a sin, along with adultery, fornication, lust, the Bible has a lot to say about sexual morality. So when you get an email telling you that Catholic bishops are proclaiming homosexuality is normal, well, I'm going to stop and I'm going to try to figure out what is going on. Now, we have to offer a word of warning right here. This happens all the time. Within Catholicism, someone will say, you'll get a news report that Pope Francis said something, that this Catholic bishop said something. And then you look into it and you'll get all of these other sources going, well, that's not exactly what they meant. That's not exactly what they said. Something was lost in translation. You don't understand. And sometimes it gets frustrating because on one hand, you're like, wait, did they say this? And then you're ready to hit the go live button and tell everyone they said this and condemn it. And then you'll have Catholics saying, wait, you misunderstand. And I would like to say to Catholics, well, could you tell your church to make clearer statements? Could you tell your church to clarify things? Because sometimes for those of us outside of the Catholic Church, we don't get it. We don't understand. Can you just make clear statements? When it comes to doctrine, there should be clarity, not confusion. And if there is confusion, your church has the authority, you claim, to make a dogmatic declaration. Just make a dogmatic declaration and settle all confusion. But in many cases, that doesn't seem to be the way it happens. So let's see what's being reported here. They sent this email they took information from Way of Life, which is an independent fundamental Baptist ministry. And they do a thing called Friday Church Notes, all right? Or Friday Church News Notes, I think is what it's called. And they report on things happening in the culture. So this email, that's the headline. Again, headline, Catholic bishops, or subject line, Catholic bishops proclaim homosexuality normal. Here is what they sent me. The Catholic bishops of Germany have proclaimed that homosexuality is, and I quote, a normal form of sexual predisposition, end quote. And it should not be changed. That should be a part of the quote as well, but they ended the quotation marks. And it should not be changed. So let me read that again. According to this, the Catholic bishops of Germany have proclaimed that homosexuality is a normal form of sexual predisposition and it should not be changed. On December the 5th, the German Bishops' Conference announced the findings of its Commission for Marriage and Family, which included bishops, sex moral theologians, dogmatic theologians, and canon lawyers. Now, this article goes on to say the only thing missing was the born-again theologians who believed the Bible. The press release said there was also agreement that the sexual preference of man expressed itself in puberty and assumes a hetero or homosexual orientation. Both belong to the normal forms of sexual predisposition, which cannot or should not be changed with the help of a specific socialization. For this reason, any form of discrimination of those persons with a homosexual orientation has to be rejected. Now, that seems pretty clear. The article says this contradicts the 1992 Catechism of the Catholic Church, which states that homosexuality acts are intrinsically disordered and contrary to the natural law. That comes from the Catechism, paragraph 2357. The Bible condemns not only homosexual acts, but also homosexual lust. Romans chapter 1, verse 24 to 27 describes same-sex lust and affections and burning and lust as unclean before God. All right, this seems to be indicating that Catholic bishops have come along and basically said, hey, homosexual predisposition, homosexual sexual orientation predisposition, it's normal and it should not be changed. There should be no discrimination against it. That's just the way a person develops. That's just the way it is, and we should leave it alone. That seems to be what they are proclaiming. Now, when I saw this, I was like, well, wait a minute. This seems a little bit confusing because that does go against the catechism and it does go against normal Catholic teaching. So I reached out to some Catholics and I was told this. The Pope has basically told the German bishops to cease and desist on their synodal path. I would say they hold next to no authority, at least canonically. The fact that they continue steady on without repercussions from the hierarchy is frankly ludicrous. All right, so they don't seem to have any true authority. However, Pope Francis doesn't seem to be stopping them and there's no repercussions. So how do we understand this? Is this the beginning of a major schism within the Catholic Church? Are we going to end up with a bunch of people either leaving the Catholic Church, or are we going to see a fundamental change to Catholic doctrine when it comes to sexual morality within the Catholic Church? Now, these are questions that everyone should ask. So this is what I have done. I have pulled 2 audio clips. Now, the first one comes to us from about 3 weeks ago, EWTN on their nightly news program. They reported on this. Now, I would like to get some updates, but this is what I found. EWTN, their nightly news program, they reported on it. I'm going to play their report. Then we're going to go back to September, and someone made some comments on YouTube about it, and we'll listen to what they had to say. So first, EWTN. Then, as soon as that is concluded, we'll go into some comments made by someone on YouTube. And again, I'm just bringing the information to you. I'm not making any conclusions yet because so many times these kind of stories blow up within Catholicism. And then you've got all these Protestants saying, they said this. And then in the Catholic world, they come out and say, well, they didn't really mean that. Doesn't really have any authority. Don't worry about it. Protestants walk away, are convinced the Catholic Church has changed a doctrine or theology. That's how Protestants walk away from the controversy, and Catholics just go on going, nothing changed. And it's like, well, wait a minute. We need clarity. We need to know the truth. So let's just listen to these reports, and we'll have to try to figure this out. Again, today we're not going to be able to figure this out in this broadcast because I have a limited amount of time. But I at least can bring this to your attention. Here's the first news report.
The German Bishops' Conference says it'll assess church teaching on homosexuality, sexual morality, and the sacraments of ordination and marriage. The commitment comes at the beginning of a 2-year council by German church leaders. In the statement, the chairman of the Marriage and Family Commission of the German Bishops' Conference, Berlin's Archbishop Heinrich Hack, said the bishops agreed homosexuality is a, quote, normal form of human sexual identity. The comments come after hearing last week from invited medical specialists, theologians, and canon lawyers. Here now to talk more about this is Christoph Zimmer, editor-in-chief of Catholic news agency Deutsch. He joins me now by Skype from Munich. Christoph, welcome back.
Thank you, Jason.
Now clarify for us what exactly the bishops are saying in this latest statement.
So in particular, when you're looking at the original German, the statement both plays to the truth of what is perception in medical terms, but also in common social terms about a predisposition to homosexuality, but at the same time tries to reconcile that with reassessing perhaps, but certainly looking at the teaching of the church, both in theory and then implementing that in practice. And it does so with a view to a 2-year process going forward into this synodal path that the German church has embarked upon.
And I know Pope Francis's exhortation on marriage and the family, Amoris Laetitia, was mentioned in these discussions. How is that being factored in?
That plays an absolutely crucial role, Jason. The question is as to how you interpret Amoris Laetitia providing for a development, both in theory and in practice, again, with regards to dealing with issues that up until now were rather clear. For instance, that the place for lived sexuality for a Catholic is within a marriage between one man and one woman. Going forward, can that change? Archbishop Heiner Koch of Berlin and Bishop Franz Josef Bode of Osnabrück, 2 German bishops attending the consultations, have said, look, we've had developments going forward after Amoris Laetitia with regards to divorced and remarried Catholics receiving communion. Perhaps there is room for us to move forward in another direction as well.
And I know that's, creating huge backlash. And I know even when you were on this show last time, we talked about concerns that some of these ideas being discussed could even bring about a schism within the church. What has the reaction been like so far to these latest statements from the bishops?
Yes, that's absolutely right, Jason. So, in fact, the emotions have run so high. What I'm seeing is a sobering down and a certain carefulness in the public debate when it comes to these questions at the moment. This might also have to do with the fact that as we're going into the process, these consultations will kick off around the end of February, really, and then we'll go on over 2-year processes that involve a lot of discussion, but also some resolutions. People are avoiding any terms that might further exacerbate a situation which is already clearly a church in dire straits when it comes to clarity on issues that are important to every practicing and perhaps even every non-practicing Catholic.
So a lot of open questions out there right now in Germany, and you talked about this whole 2-year process. So what are the next steps then for the discussion? What's going on right now in the process, and I guess it carries out for the next 2 years?
Well, absolutely. So what you're seeing at the moment is people are trying to stake a claim for the debate as they're going into this process, but also in the public sphere. There are some positions being put forward. There's debate about others. And what we're going to find is that it's not only about homosexuality or sexuality or even sexual morality as it is taught by the church. It is going even further into the core of the magisterium of the church when it comes to the authority within the church, the ordination, the sacramental ordination, for instance, of women. There's a demand, of course, for the priestly ordination of women, as you know. And there are certain other areas also that really touch upon the sacramental life of the church. And not only in Germany, but they do so for the universal church. And there are some who think that the synodal process in Germany should be a model for the church overall across the globe, and others who fear that very development.
And they say it could be a ticking time bomb. That's what the critics are saying. So Christoph Zimmer, editor-in-chief of Catholic news agency Deutsch, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Jason.
Now, they made some important comments. Now, I apologize for the low volume there. I don't know why it was playing such a low volume. I was looking at every setting that I had, and there was no way to increase that volume, so I apologize. Hopefully, you were able to hear that fine. A couple of major statements made there: a ticking time bomb, possible schism, and that the church basically is in a very bad, dangerous place when it comes to clarity on some of these key issues. And that's my argument. Look, every time this kind of thing happens, there's a group of bishops get together and they make all these proclamations and they say all of these things. It always drives me crazy because you'll have some within the Catholic Church saying, well, they don't hold any authority, don't really worry about it. And I'm like, but it's within the Catholic Church. Don't you have leadership? Don't you have a leadership structure to silence this, to stop it, to clarify? shouldn't there be absolute clarity when it comes to the issue of homosexuality, when it comes to the issue of salvation? The Pope made some, it sounded like he made some comments, recently that, wait, does everyone go to heaven? I did a broadcast on that, and you'll have Catholics going, well, that's not really what he meant. That's not really what he said. And that's always the go-to every time this happens. And at some point, I would think Catholics would say, wait a minute, we need absolute clarity. We need absolute clarity because, in fact, I don't even know why they would be making, here would be my question. Why would you even be making statements and looking at issues that supposedly are clear and resolved in the Catholic Catechism? If the Catechism is authoritative and gives the authoritative teaching of the Church, then why get together and be looking at issues contrary to what, and coming to conclusions, or at least suggesting conclusions that are contrary to the Catechism? Is the Catechism binding? And if it is binding, then what does all of these other things mean? This leads to confusion outside of the Catholic Church. And Catholics get mad when people point this out, but hey, don't get mad. This is your church's problem. Your church is doing this. Y'all have the structure to silence, to clarify, and to issue dogmatic declarations. If you don't utilize that authority, then don't sit there and criticize Protestants, because this is what they say. You don't have an authoritative structure. You've got 35,000 denominations. And I understand that there's merit in that criticism, but that criticism loses any power if you are experiencing similar things, but you're not using your supposed authority that can fix it to solve it. Right? You can criticize us because we don't have that authoritative structure, and I understand that there is great criticism for that, and that every Protestant runs around like they're their own pope, giving authoritative declarations and thinking that they can interpret the Bible authoritative and it's binding on everyone. I understand that there's some issues within the non-Catholic world, but you claim to have a structure not to allow that to happen. And then when confusion is reigning, you don't do anything to clarify it. I would say that is a problem. All right, let's go to another audio clip. This was posted in September. So remember this conference, and I guess some of their conclusions, or when these bishops got together, that's dated December the 5th. We just heard from about 3 weeks ago on EWTN, so would get us close to the December 5th date. All right, get us pretty close to that. So that EWTN report, deals pretty much with what we just read. Now we're going to go way back to September of 2019. And someone on YouTube was making some speaking about this. And I think that, let's at least listen to what they have to. We may not agree with everything, but let's at least listen to what they have to say about this, because I think this just demonstrates there's a lot of people talking about it. This demonstrates there's a lot of confusion. This demonstrates there's a lot of opinions. And this means there's something going on. And it just seems that when it comes to doctrinal, theological clarity, I think we can all agree Pope Francis, not his strong suit, not his strong point. I think we can all agree on that. All right, let's listen to this.
The spirit of Martin Luther lives on today in Germany, and it resides firmly with the German Bishops' Conference. It's not surprising. After all, these are the same men who conspired to bring about the coming Amazon Synod, with its embrace of paganism, egalitarianism, and other Masonic values that stand opposed to the Catholic faith. And now the German bishops are at it again, sensing that now is a revolutionary moment.
Now, I have to jump right in there and make some claims about the Amazon Synod. When I talked to Catholics, it was the same thing. Well, they're not authoritative. They don't really have any power. And you're like, but they seem to be saying a lot of crazy things and embracing a lot of crazy ideas. And once again, you're told, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Well, if every Amazon Synod, bishops want to have a synod, or German bishops want to have a synod, if every region is having all of these regional type synods and get-togethers embracing all kinds of crazy ideas that contradict Catholic teaching, how far wide or how many different places does that happen before you ultimately impact the universal teaching of the Catholic Church? Like I still don't understand this, but yeah, the Amazon Synod, I talk to Catholics and the same thing. No power, no authority, nothing to see here, move on. Now it's happening in Germany. Wait, nothing to see here, move on. Well, now it's happening. I mean, like at some point, no, I think you can tell me there's nothing to see here and to move on. I think I'm going to stop and I'm going to pay attention. And I think everyone else should as well. All right, let's listen to the rest of this.
In our civilization, and especially in the church. At this moment, the German bishops are preparing for a revolutionary push in the church in Germany that even Pope Francis has warned against, meaning that the Germans are pushing too hard, even for the so-called reformer pope. That should give pause to everyone watching. So let's go over what the only group in the church that might be causing more harm than the Jesuits are planning to do. The Germans are, to put it in the most plain way to describe it, the Germans are pushing for democracy in the church. They are creating what they are calling a synodal assembly to run the church in Germany. This synodal assembly would create a synodal way of the Catholic Church in Germany, with the aim to address and clarify key issues such as authority and separation of powers, sexual morality, the priestly mode of life, women at the service of ecclesiastical offices, over the course of a 2-year revolutionary period. The synodal assembly would be given the authority to pass resolutions in the name of the Church in Germany. The assembly will have up to 200 members, with the largest block, 70 people in number, coming from the Central Committee of German Catholics, or the ZDK. This is, to be clear, a synodal body of mixed laity and clergy with the power to rule over the German Church, to pass binding resolutions. And again, it would have the power to explicitly address governance of the Church, sexual morality, the nature and reality of the priesthood, meaning clerical celibacy, women's ordination, and other topics. Do you see a pattern emerging yet? Some people think that I and other people are crazy for saying that the Amazon Synod will have its effects felt around the world. Remember that the Amazon Synod is the brainchild of the same German Bishops' Conference, and the German bishops are now planning to push for exactly the same nonsense that they are pushing in the Amazon, but this time for Germany. And once the Germans adopt it, it will spread. Just wait and see. All members of the Synodal Assembly will have one vote. The priests and deacons and bishops of the Church will have the same voting power as the lay members of this body. Does anyone else remember how the Second Vatican Council called this the Age of the Laity? Well, here we are, folks, and you and I know that this is going to be terrible, with catastrophic consequences for the Church. One of the hallmarks of modernism is the push for democracy within the Church, which is itself a facet of the heresy of Americanism, a heresy which states that the Church in a particular country should be different than the Church in the rest of the world. That heresy is called Americanism because it was, at first, an American idea, but has long since spread to the parts of the world with the most corrupt clergy. It is the spirit behind the push for synodalism, and it is most virulently present in this push by the Germans for a lay-governed church in Germany that will promote heterodox ideals, that will be a clear break with the rest of the Church. If this body isn't going to produce schism, I don't know what else can or will. I'm going to quote directly from a piece over at the Catholic News Agency website on this story, and it was written by Ed Condon. This details Pope Francis's response, and it's pretty rich, all things considered. Quote, in June, Pope Francis issued a letter to the entire Church in Germany, warning the bishops against plans and mechanisms which could prove anything but helpful for a common path for the Church. The Pope said that any synodal path would need to be the subject of careful reflection. What it means concretely and how it develops will certainly have to be considered even more deeply, the Pope wrote, reminding the Germans that synodality means going out together with the whole Church under the light of the Holy Spirit. Francis warned that the synodal perspective does not resolve opposites or confusions, nor does it subordinate conflicts to the decisions of a good consensus that compromise faith to the results of censuses or surveys relating to this or that subject. Despite the Pope's call for a deeper reflection on synodal mechanisms and a focus on faithful evangelization, senior sources in the German Bishops' Conference told Catholic News Agency that the conference is now in the final stages of completing the governing document. End quote. In other words, this isn't the kind of synodality that Francis has been pushing for, evidently. It can only be described as such a serious error on the part of the Germans that even this Pope can't endorse it. Let that sink in. Now, if you had to guess which German cardinal was behind this, if I told you that it was Cardinal Marx, would you be surprised? Probably not. I wasn't surprised to see that he was taking a central role in developing the schism. And to eliminate any doubt that these maniacs want to push the errors of the Amazon Synod on the rest of the Church, they are timing the release of this working group study on women's ordination, clerical celibacy, and sexual morality in general to coincide rather perfectly with the Amazon Synod's release of similar resolutions. Ain't this grand? Francis apparently has said that the push for married priests in the Amazon shouldn't be the main thrust of that synod, but the German bishops have already openly said that once the Amazon gets the go-ahead for ordaining married men, that they will ask for permission to implement the same errors in their dioceses. Again, quoting Ed Condon's piece, where the author quotes a German bishop named Franz Josef Bode, quote, Bode said in a 2018 interview that if the priestly ordination of married men is authorized for remote regions, German bishops will insist on the same authorization. This is obvious, Bode said at the time. The bishop said that pastoral emergency in Osnabrück, his diocese, and other German dioceses, is different but also very severe. Bishop Franz Josef Overbeck of Essen, who also serves as president of Adveniat, the church in Germany's aid organization for Latin America, has called the Amazon Synod a point of no return for the church, and that nothing will be the same as it was after the Synod. End quote. And he's right, and that was kind of the point in calling the Amazon Synod in the first place. As I've said elsewhere, it's clearly designed to enable the various national conferences of bishops around the Western world to have an excuse to implement errors, like they did with the abomination known as communion in the hand, and removal of altar rails, or the imposition of girl altar boys, or the destruction of the liturgy broadly. The revolution continues, and predictably a German named Marx is at the center of it. And to prove that this aim was to spread the revolution globally, here are the words of another German bishop, Bishop Kloss, on essentially rejecting Pope Francis's rather common-sense directive that the Germans must remain in communion with the rest of the Catholic Church. Quoting Martin Luther Jr., "It is not right to use the level of the global Church as an excuse not to comprehensively face concrete problems on the ground," he told members as he recommended ZDK participation in the Synodal Assembly. "This must not become a self-serving attempt to justify the Church's behavior. It lives from the impulses of those people who strive to present the gospel of Jesus in their concrete situations." End quote. Somewhere Pope Pius X is smiling sadly at that statement. And yeah, I guess the faith isn't concrete enough for these maniacs, but to prove that this push is for global revolution in the Church, the bishops of Germany plan to make their decisions and binding resolutions public in dozens of printed languages. What would be the point of that if not to export their revolution? And of course they're doing it in the name of reading the gospel and the signs of the times. I'd call that an insult to every faithful Catholic trying desperately to keep the flame of the faith alive. But in these increasingly dark days, the gospel is being abused more and more to promote all manner of error and the values of the world writ large. If you've ever wondered what the triumph of those who wrote the permanent instruction of the Alta Vendita might look like, you really only need to look at the German Bishops' Conference today to get an idea. Lord, forgive them, for they know not what they do. I'm Anthony Stein. Ave Maria.
Now, if you would like to listen to more of videos produced by that individual, the name of his YouTube channel is Return to Tradition. Return to Tradition. And obviously, it sounds to me he's definitely Catholic, and he's definitely offering some harsh criticism to things happening within the Catholic Church. Again, Return to Tradition. You may want to check that out and just look at everything he has to say. There's probably a lot more videos of his I'd like to play the audio from, but you get the idea. I mean, he's referring to this as a revolution that they're trying to occur globally. They're trying to impact the whole church. And it goes back to the Amazon Synod. There's a number of factors coming together. So This is what my prediction here. We're going to have Catholics basically saying there's nothing to see here. They don't have any power. They don't have any authority. But let me say it again. I know I'm repeating myself, but let me say it again. If you've got bishops that are being declared, hey, they're corrupt. They're out trying to change the church and destroy the teaching of the church, or at least, destroy the current teaching of the church and replace it with something different. Well, the Catholic Church has a structure in place to stop that. They can silence them. They can remove them from leadership. They can do something about it. If they do not, are they not complicit in this teaching? Are they not allowing the teaching? Can it be silenced immediately? Could not Pope call for a general audience and stand up and say, here is the teaching of the church that will not be changed. Homosexuality is a sin. Boom. Women will not be ordained. Boom. I mean, just declare it, and be done. At least from a Protestant perspective, from a non-Catholic perspective, that's the way I understand it, and that's the way I see it. And if you don't do that, and you've got all of these warnings of schism, ticking time bomb, major problems. Well, then what's the point of your authority? What's the point of it? What's your great benefit? We have this authority in place. You non-Catholics, y'all just run around all claiming your own authority, and you've got chaos, and you've got spiritual anarchy and theological chaos. Well, it sounds like that's what's happening now in the Catholic Church. All right, I'll definitely keep following this, and we'll see what happens. Again, these things continue to blow up. Catholics tell me don't worry about it, and then something else comes out. So we will see. So thanks to the person who emailed me that article today to start all of this, and we'll just see where this all ends up. We'll see where all this ends up. Well, this ends a special live broadcast for the non-Catholic Catholic podcast. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, email me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. Two sources I would point you to, obviously EWTN, their nightly news program. It's available online for free. I would keep up with that, where you can kind of see what's happening. And then Return to Tradition. I mean, he seems to have be willing to offer some criticism of it. And so you could check out his YouTube channel. Again, with anything, always check sources, always ask good questions, verify. Truth is what we want. And the Catholic Church continues down this path. I mean, from a theological perspective, there's already plenty of other issues we could question. But there comes a point, I don't know how committed Catholics can continue to defend some of the things happening within the Catholic Church. I don't know how they can continue to defend it. And, we'll see. Could we see a major schism within the Catholic Church in our lifetime? That's a good question. Could we see that? I don't know. All right, I'll stop right there. Everyone have a great day. God bless.